Okay, in the previous video, I did a one stamp pad value range across a composition, and we're going to try this again, but we'll use the hybrid black ink and see how that works out. Now, for this composition, I'm going to be doing it on a piece of actual matte cardstock. I've just been using, in a lot of recent videos, just the backside of a glossy cardstock, which isn't really matte cardstock on the back because it's not coated on the back, but we'll actually use some matte cardstock here, and I'm going to try this with the hybrid black ink. Okay, now, I don't know, I haven't done this before, so we'll see how it goes, but the same concept applies, so you can always kind of apply your concepts across different media, okay? I mean, there's certain watercolor techniques that you can't do with, you know, like oil pastels, but, you know, in terms of the actual art technique, but you can certainly utilize the same types of concepts as far as things like composition and lighting and things like that go, and you can just apply it to a different medium. Alright, so that being said, the inks that I'll be using here, the hybrid inks, are going to be a little bit more, or a lot more, kind of surface-oriented, where the dye-based inks are really soaked into the paper. I'm guessing that this should be easier to do because the inks aren't soaking in quite as much. Could be an issue with smearing of imagery, I don't know. You know, because that, again, the imagery might not be soaking in, so maybe I'll be spreading this around doing this. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I think it should work just fine. Okay, so I'm just stamping out this composition using my unmounted rubber, and for unmounted rubber I do have the tack and peel applied to my acrylic blocks here. You can use those things like, I forgot what it was called, like purple onion something gel plate or something like that. I don't know what it's called if you're using something like a Misty or Stamp Position or whatever. Okay, now this is my Spooky Moon small. I thought I'd fill in a little bit more area on this piece today than what I did yesterday, just to make things go a little bit faster. I kept things really fairly minimal so that I'd have a lot of space to have to fill in with my toning, but that was just to kind of make a point of the of all the layering of ink that you do to accomplish that certain look and to practice your technique. Alright, this is Spooky Cloud. I'm just kind of filling this around it. If I go over the top of that covered bridge, I will mask it off because it is open right there. But I think what I'll do is I'll just go kind of around it like this. Almost looks like that looks like a Sleepy Hollow kind of foundation right here, you know. Headless Horseman, with that type of Spooky Moon up there. If you stamp the Spooky Moon, I'm doing this in just monochromatic, you know, because that's the lesson here, and using one pad to achieve all the values, but, I mean, for something like that, you can certainly, if I stamp that moon up there in something like a light blue, it would take on a different characteristic altogether. It wouldn't look really spooky because the contrast wouldn't be there. It'd be very light and airy. Alright, I think I was going to stamp out a couple trees in here. Maybe I'll blot off the bottom of this one. Let me go to my mask, my masking material, which is also going to be my color application material. That's just a paper towel here. You just rip it like so. I don't know. I don't need a big piece. I'm just going to mask off right here. And I'll stamp some trees right in here. Let's go for a smaller one right next to it. Something like that. Okay, and why don't we put another tree kind of behind that road part. Okay, and you can go for different heights and overlap if you want to, whatever. Okay, so we have that. Now we have all this open space here, right? So let's do something with a little bit of extra texture. Okay, let me see if my tack and peel here is exposed, so it's not sticky anymore at all. All you have to do, if you watch my video on rinsing these off, you just put them under the sink and wipe off all that dust, and they stick like crazy, like brand new. I've even taken a scouring brush and, sponge and just scoured off, some of the stains, and that material is like indestructible. It just keeps working like brand new every time you wash them off. They might get a little stained and things like that, but they just stick and stick and stick. It's really amazing. And great for us, of course. Okay, so here's that road. Putting some things on like that. I'm kind of going for the lighter impressions as well, just to kind of mix it up on there. I don't know, maybe if that was all snow on there, maybe there wouldn't be so much pebbly rock, but I don't know. I like texture, so why not add it in there? Okay, and a smaller version of this might be better, but I'm just going to use this larger one here. Okay, I'm just doing the top. Well, let's do a little bit more than what I think I'll need. Let's throw a mask right here, and let's put some of these bushes right here, just to kind of flank the road a little bit like this, okay? It kind of creates a new kind of, I don't know, road perimeter, roadside, by putting those bushes there. We're saying that, it's not getting run over, or trampled, so that's what we have here. Alright, now this monochromatic type of approach to color application, well, ink application in this case, not color application, but it tends to go very fast because we're not running through tons of different colors, but I will be taking my time to apply the black in here to achieve different shades. Okay, now let's do this, and let's test out how these hybrid inks might work on this piece. I don't know, this isn't a real definitive, proof of how this will always work out. Like I said, I've never done this before, so with these inks, of course, but I'm guessing they'd work, about the same as the dye-based inks, maybe even easier. We'll see. Okay, so I'm just taking a paper towel and I've wadded it up, as you can see. Okay, I don't want to just use one ply and just go like that and have it rip through, so I kind of make this little pad right here, and what I do is I like to kind of wipe it off. I get the feel of, wow, that might look on here too. And then while I'm doing that, it's kind of smoothing out the ink and spreading it around on the surface evenly. Alright, so this is my moon, so I'm going to want to keep that nice and light, okay? And if I want that moon to stand out, then I'm just going to take the area around it and make it a little bit darker, okay? Yeah, they spread beautifully. It's almost like I took a piece of charcoal on here, drawing charcoal, and drew it on here and wiped it on. That's kind of the feel that I get. Okay, so just kind of watch out. If you want that moon to stand out, don't go over it, okay? A lot of times people say, I toned out my lighting or something like that. It's, you kind of have to, you got to put the brakes on a little bit, So what people have a trouble doing, let's say, in leaving an area open like that, light, it's because they're used to seeing this as one whole space, like an entire sky. So they see that as like one section of like a stained glass or something like that, where you're going to put one color in there. So they're used to coloring in outlined areas, okay, and doing filling them in completely, okay. It's like you would do on a coloring book, okay. But what I'm doing here is I'm toning for, not only for that tone or color if I was using a color, but I'm toning for lighting, which means it doesn't mean that it's a harder type of application. You do have to kind of put the brakes on though, but it's a faster application because you're not toning in the whole thing equally, and that's what this whole kind of exercise is about. It's about going in and about being able to manipulate whatever color you're using to achieve its, darkest form, its full saturation form, like we would with a coloring pen or something like that if we colored in this whole area. But in achieving all of the different values, or a lot of them, you don't have to go with, the full range, like, oh my god, I didn't do a 30% there, But this is going for everything from, a very, very light application to a very dark one on the perimeter like that. In this type of scene, I like to create kind of a striations, like this. So when I'm doing this, I'm kind of staying in one area like this and creating this band. Then I'll do another one coming this way, so it kind of leaves these streaks of open area in there that are, of a lighter value, so that it looks like, I don't know, kind of more natural maybe in the sky. The lighter you want your light elements, objects, to stand out, the darker you take the area around them. Okay, so see, if I go darker right here, that moon kind of pops out a little bit more by contrast. All right, now let's take a look down here in the road. I'm going to do it a similar way, but I don't see this road as something to be, okay, this is going to be a road, so I'm going to color it all in equally, okay? It's just like up here. What you do is you color it in. Just for the portions that, okay, I'm coloring in this covered bridge. See, if I do that and I leave the rooftop light, it looks more three-dimensional that way. See how I've kind of colored here and here? Okay, let's do the road right here. I like to leave my roads fairly light to create kind of a visual path for the viewer's eye to follow, okay? But that being said, I don't like to leave it like stark white or something like that, so let's apply some tone on here, like so. And, again, I can do those kind of those striations, but just down here in the road. So it's oscillating from a little bit of dark light, dark light. I mean, how dark you make this, it's all up to you. All right, now here's the thing with the hybrid inks right here. They're surface-oriented, so going on here, that area up there had a longer time to set up, but I just stamped these rocks down here. So I can see they're kind of smearing, but not much. It's just kind of in the darkest ones. And I mean, you can easily heat set this before you start doing this if you want to. I don't feel it needs to do that. If I get a little bit of a streak down there, I'll call it a shadow or something like that, from the rock. It's no big deal. I don't want a real, super dark streak running across there, but a little bit is not, a problem. And again, if you're kind of doing this as an exercise, you can do this on glossy cardstock or on matte cardstock using the dye-based inks too. I'm just trying the hybrid here because I haven't done that before. I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, see this right here? It's just really fast. I'm kind of, here's the little things that I look for. I see the structure right here, so I'm kind of darkening the area right below it. So see, doesn't that look like it's casting a shadow down here now? Okay, it's just kind of moving it around. But see, this is what I'm using. I'm using a, look how light that is. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's, a very light shade, right? So I have a lot more control over it. So that's one of the things that people, beginning, people that are beginning, or this kind of application is new to them. I'm not talking about just paper towels. I'm talking about just kind of toning in an area with any form of applicator, a sponge or anything like that. It's the utilization of the drier versions of it that give us a lot of control, but also variation. So look at this right here. Isn't that fantastic? You can get really light shades, or you can get very dark ones, just depending on how much ink you apply. And you can get these really smooth transitions too by simply using the drier version of whatever given color you're working in, and just getting those darker tones with repetition, the darker values with repetition, okay? See, I'm kind of putting this down here at the base of these trees, or underneath those trees, to make it look like those trees are, casting a little bit more of a shadow. They wouldn't cast a shadow like that, but who cares? It's just about kind of controlling light, okay? So instead of just doing this all in one tone, like maybe if we're doing this in color, maybe this road's dirt, so there's like a tan in here. But then I would come in with the darker browns around here. Okay, so this is just kind of an exercise for kind of your tonal control. And when you really only have one ink to work with, it really, kind of reinforces the use of and need, in this case, to use, your application process in a different way. Okay, that was really super long-winded, but when you only have one ink to work with, it really forces us to, apply very conscientiously the degree of which ink we're transferring. Okay, meaning you're just kind of using your drier colors, okay? Now when we go with colors on this one, let's say I'm doing a winter scene, I can do just light blues in here, medium blues and darker blues on the perimeter or something like that. But you can also use your darkest of colors, like if it was all blues, like one of these ones, and I can achieve as light a color of this one if I want to, which is really beneficial because you can get all kinds of different types of looks by simply mixing your colors together. But sometimes we don't want to mix, a full saturation of super dark with fairly light like this. We want to do a very much lighter version of this with this color right here. All right. So that being said, it just gives you an exponentially wider range of values of ink using your existing inks to achieve them. You don't have to get, if you don't want to. I have a lot of pads, but if it's a different hue, then I usually get a different pad. But if some color in ink form is almost the identical version of a darker one, usually I just get the darker one, and then I'll just use a lighter version of it. Okay, and then I'll spend that money that I was going to buy on that other one on just a completely different hue, to expand my potential range of, within my collection of pads and inks. Okay, so anyways, this is, I think, pretty much done right here in terms of achieving that tonal range. I think there's a complete statement here in terms of my tones. And again, that's just using one ink, and this was super easy using the hybrid inks. It feels like drawing with charcoal, especially when you're doing it on a matte cardstock. I'd imagine the glossy, well, this one's not glossy on this one, but I'd imagine on glossy it would work very similar. It might spread out kind of in a different way in terms of more like streaking or something like that. But I don't know. There's no problem with them. And I don't know. I got a little bit of a blur right here. Let's see if I can focus in right here. See that little streak right there? But that's not really any big deal. So anyways, monochromatics again. I'll do a couple more of these before I kind of get off this kind of a lesson plan here, but I do really think that it's a really beneficial exercise to get into. And, I mean, you don't have to leave them monochromatic like this. You can do a colored tint over the top of them if you want to. I can turn this into blues or whatever, or I can turn it into kind of probably like a real spooky looking, eerie, brownish, murky, warm tone scene or something like that, with maybe a red moon or something like that. That might look interesting for a holiday card, Halloween card, or something like that. So you can color tint these ones, but try to achieve that full range of values just using your one ink. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.